Thank you very much. I just have the stick, so I have a longer round of applause. Hi, everyone. Now, I'm going to tell you something that you might not be expecting. Most marketing is bollocks. And we're at a marketing conference, but I'm going to tell you why, so bear with me. I'm going to be sharing this marketing superpower. Now, if I hadn't had this, I would have been rushing in with a cape and eye mask. So next year. I'm going to start with a story, and this was in there before Charlie spoke, but nice one. On the 3rd of April last year, my left foot stopped working properly, which is a bit annoying, and particularly annoying as I was moving house the next day. And I was down in Oxfordshire, sort of corralling the removers, making sure nothing was left behind, while my family had come up here and were getting settled and enjoying a nice day in the travel lodge. And I'm down there, meant to be humping and dumping, but not so much. And I just got on with it. Took the painkillers, cracked on. And yes, now we're 18 months later and, you know, the NHS is what it is. So I am waiting for surgery. And I am a bit concerned. I am going to have some quite serious surgery on my foot now. And so I put my logical hat on and thought, well, what happens during surgery? How are patients looked after during surgery? Now, I know you're here at a marketing conference, but go with me on the story. So how do we look after people during surgery? This is an audience participation section. How do we look after people during surgery?
Put them to sleep.
Anesthesia, yes, I really hope there's going to be a bucket ton of that. What else?
We make sure they're still breathing.
Yes, yeah, we're monitoring them. What else?
The environment's sterile.
So we have people around us making sure it works and
Environment's sterile.
environment sterile. So absolutely brilliant. What we've done there, we've touched on it with sterile, but particularly we've focused on some things. You know, we want good lighting because we want them to be able to see what they're doing and doing the right thing, hopefully to the right foot. And we want them to be looking after us. But what we've done in some of those examples is we've focused on the surgery bit, the things, the actual stuff. But we haven't thought about step one. Now, in surgery, one of the best ways we can look after our patients is washing our hands. No one mentioned that because it's such a given, right? And the amount of times I have to say to my kids, have you washed your hands? They haven't quite got to surgeon status yet. But it's the absolute basics. And it seems commonplace now. But there's many things in our lives where we don't necessarily think about the step one. Or it's not until someone tells us about step one that we go, oh yeah, that makes sense now. Now here's a slightly worrying fact. It wasn't until 1846 that a surgeon called Ignaz Semmelweis, I hope I've done his name justice, had the crazy idea of washing our hands during surgery, before surgery, and that would actually improve patient outcomes. And you know what? He was ambassador for it. This was too crazy. What are you talking about? Imagine how it's going to slow us down if we have to wash our hands in between seeing every patient, which seems completely nuts now. And even more worrying than that was it didn't make it into the US medical guidelines until the actual 1980s. I have memories from the 1980s because I am actually that old. But the 1980s, hand washing didn't go into medical guidelines in the United States. Was it because it was thought of to be so blooming obvious? So this was really interesting for me, kind of putting my logical head on and thinking about, well, how am I going to be kept safe? And nowadays, we feel quite safe doing this. But nearly half of all patients used to die in surgery because step one wasn't done. That then reduced to 5% in pretty short order once hand washing was introduced. Now it's pretty much nothing because of things like double gloving and so on in surgery. You know how you see them on the TV programs and they're getting their arms in there under the special taps and iodine and whatnot. So I'm pretty sure if anything crops up, it is not going to be because of hand washing. And I also know there was someone there going, I told you so, hand washing is actually the answer to everything. But we don't know until we know. And I know you're thinking, maybe there's a connection here with marketing. Is this where Emma's going? Now, there is a bit of a connection between medical doctors and managing directors. They're both MDs. Thank you. Both high-pressured roles. Both have to take in inputs from a whole load of people, whether they're on your team or external. Heck, even people up here spouting a load of old bollocks. We have toys, we have tools, things that we could potentially dive into, and we have to make choices. There's typically one person carrying the can, and it's constant and it's intense, whether that's in surgery, in medicine, or running our own businesses. So how many times with your marketing Have you rushed in to step 2 or 3 or 4? Just posted the thing on social media, just sent that email, just created that leaflet or recorded that podcast. Now, some of the things that we've heard about today, we need to do some thinking beforehand, because you might be all saying, Kaz, get it, absolutely, I need to do that stuff. And then when you get back to it, you're sitting on your phone or your laptop and you're going, yeah, what am I going to do? I don't know. And that's why you need step 1. Step 1 is where we start. There's so much in life that starts with step 1. If you want to paint the walls, you wash them first, otherwise you're going to paint in the cobwebs or it's going to flake off. If you want to go somewhere in the car, take the car keys. And if you want to make an omelette, if someone hadn't told you that you need to break some eggs, how would you know? You just end up with some melted cheese and ham, right? It sounds obvious. But remember, like hand washing, this thinking doesn't come in to a whole lot of marketing. I get it. It's not sexy. Not everyone wants to do it. Just like I don't want to do surgery. You'll all be very pleased to know. So I've worked with maybe 600 small businesses. And if you're thinking, okay, Ems, yeah, I think that's me. Don't worry. You're not alone. A lot of companies fall into this step of working on step 2, 3 and 4 and not step 1. So I want to encourage you to think before the things. So before you jump into that post, sorry guys, a little bit of thinking, but before you jump into that, do the thinking, because otherwise you're just posting. You're just sending out an email, but to what end? And how are you connecting with people? And I get it. I'm a small business owner as well. And even though my husband is a sleep specialist, I still only get 24 hours in the day. He hasn't managed an extra 24 for me. So I get tempted. I just want to get the things done. I've got a to-do list as long as you do, dads, right? And I have to get things done. And I'm juggling clients and I'm juggling stuff and I'm juggling family, and my mother-in-law lives with me. So I also have to find a way to juggle in some gin drinking. So I'm tempted, like we all are, to just get the thing ticked off our to-do list. But I encourage you to do the think before things. Now, I'm not one of these people, these kind of influencers out there on social media that says you have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and have your ice bath and post a bazillion times a day and then cruise around Monaco in a gold Lamborghini. And unsurprisingly enough, I don't drive a Lamborghini. I drive a Volvo, which is not sexy, but it is reliable, just like step 1. Okay, good. And these guys are posting things, and does that help us? We've talked about doom scrolling and so on. Well, you know, we're just comparing. We're listening to people and what basis are they saying these things on? And now I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Literally anybody with an internet connection and a nice pen could theoretically become a marketer. I noticed that Tom's just left the room. Maybe it was a precursor. But let's think about it. Okay, surgery is, you have to be accredited, you have to do a bucket ton of training and so on. But literally anyone who can do the things can become a marketer. Now, I'm not saying, actually, you need to go and have 58 degrees and you need to have done this course and that course to be a marketer. I'm not saying that. But we just need to bear it in mind. Most marketers are brilliant experts at doing the things. They're brilliant at SEO, they're brilliant at social marketing, they're brilliant at various digital, print, events, all kinds of things. They're brilliant at doing that stuff. But let's face it, they love the things, but they're a bit meh about the think. It's not sexy. It's like my Volvo. Maybe that's why I like the Volvo, because I think the think stuff is really, really important. And I'll show you a bit later how it massively transforms things. Now, you're in good company, because 75% of marketers don't know this stuff. The Chartered Institute of Marketing has put out figures that 75% of marketers aren't trained. And even when I'm doing talks like this, people will say, well, I've got a degree. And do you know what? Actually, we never do this. And why is it? So even those people with training aren't doing this because we, as clients, are not giving them the time or the budget to do the think. We're asking them to jump in to do the things. So if you want to get the very best from your marketing, you do need to have done the think. Otherwise, we're putting our marketers back into 1800 surgeons territory where they're not washing their hands. And what's going to potentially die? Your campaign. Now, hopefully your marketing is slightly less bloody than surgery. Fingers crossed. But I don't want that for your campaigns. I want it to really work. And I know if you do the think before the things, it will be successful. So, things you need to remember. Step 1. You're going to see this slide a lot, and it's a whole lot of times in your book. Someone very kindly said, Emma, there's a lot of step 1. Where's 2 and 3? That's further down the line. Need you to focus on step 1. So who here has ever had marketing not ever quite go to plan? Not go as expected, not deliver the results that you were hoping for? Okay, a lot of hands up. Can you see how step 1 might have played a part? Any nodding? No? Yeah? This is common. In all those companies that I've spoken to, I lecture across now 6 business schools across the country. This is common. This is really common. And this step 1 light bulb moment is absolutely transformational. So, okay, we've got a feeling. We've got to go, okay, step 1, get it. So how do we do it? So we have these 3 steps. Now, in marketing land, you might have heard it called segmentation, targeting, and positioning. All that's going to do is win you a game of Scrabble. Okay, I've tried to de-bollocks it by coming up with saying what it is. First step, we group our audience according to shared characteristics. Then we very simply choose which of the groups we're going to focus on. And then we've answered the questions and we now know how to engage. And we're going to do a real exercise today. So you get over that hump. Have you ever gone to a training or an event and you thought, yeah, I get it, and then gone back to the office and gone, yeah, I did get it, and now I've completely forgotten what I was meant to be doing? So we're going to have a little go at this. So you will need a pen, and in the books, I'll direct you to what we need to look at. But this is why we need it. So if you can see on the slide, and you see it in your booklets, this is an example think matrix. In Bollocksy marketing land, it will be called a meaningful, actionable grid. Again, it's just winning Scrabble score. Now along the top, this is for pet food. And this is a made-up example to illustrate the point. So along the top, we've got ways in which people shop. Online, in-store, and both. And down the side, we've got kinds of food, regular, organic, and premium. And through doing some of this think, we've clustered our customer groups according to shared characteristics. Now here, they've focused on 2. And I'll explain why these 2 were focused on. This can be complicated and a bit messy, and of course you can always get in touch and ask a few questions for unmessifying it. But this stuff is absolutely transformational. This is pure think, and I promise you, you will have an aha moment. So in your booklets, there's a page that looks similar to this, and then one on the other side that's got a table or a grid. Have you found that? Fab, okay. So we're going to do this, and we're going to start with group. So we're going to use our think matrix. We're going to look at the types, so the ways in which we can divide up those groups. Heroes, hence standing here, we had some heroes mentioned today. What we can identify, we're going to know our numbers, and then by the end we will know a whole lot more than we did at the beginning of the exercise. So for types, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, okay? Now, let's just set some expectations. You are not going to nail this in the next 30 seconds. This is one of those tasks that you will keep adding to. I have my ideas in the shower, other people have their ideas walking the dog, in the middle of Pilates, whatever it is. Keep adding to it. And it might take you 2 weeks. Post-it notes up on the wall. But keep adding to this list. And these are all the things like age, location, education, family. Might be things like age of the technology they use, their values. I don't want you to filter them and go, yeah, I'm not sure. Write the thing down, because the next steps will filter them in or out. So does that make sense? Write down all those things like age, location, all those things that are really important to a potential audience of your product or service. You don't need 5 PhDs. This is gut feel is good enough for right now, unless anyone says that they've got a £250,000 research budget, in which case we need to be having a different conversation. Okay? All right? Any questions? Right, 30 seconds. Let's go. Was that the quickest 30 seconds in the history of the universe?
Absolutely.
It was, right? But I've seen some furious scribbling, so hopefully you've started to write some stuff down, and I would encourage you to come back to this after today. So now what we're going to do is some of this filtering. So the first thing we're going to do is, who are the heroes on this list? And we're going to give them a score between 1 and 10. 1, where they are not a hero at all, they are not important to our audience, or less so. We might give them a 1, 2, that lower scores. If they are absolutely critically important, then we're going to give them a 10. Again, do not overthink. That will stop you getting on with stuff. I call that procrastinating. No procrastinators, please. We're actually cracking on and doing stuff that's going to really transform our business. So I'm only giving you 15 seconds this time. It's finger in the air. It's this kind of number. 1, not heroic. 10, hell yes, really, really important. Okay? You're going to get into the flow of this by the end of the session. Okay, 15 seconds, off you go. Fastest 15 seconds in the universe. But you see, you're just starting to do it. So it's a bit like people call Wednesday hump day, because you kind of got halfway through the week. Now what you're doing is kind of doing the hump of the exercise, because you're starting it and it's not as scary as it might first seem. So identify. So a THI in our think. So this is where we are looking at and giving a score. Can we find that type out? Now we can probably find out age and location. It might be harder to find things like values. Although we could maybe look at that by what groups are they members of on social, or what magazines do they subscribe to. But it might be harder to find it out. So 1, if it's going to be really tricky to find it out. 10, Emma, I've got this. It's in my CRM, or it's in my Excel spreadsheet, or whatever you're using to track data. Okay, 1 to 10 against each of those types, 15 seconds, off you go. So remember, this is just to get you going. And it might feel hard, but I would say just go with your gut feel to get those things down. And you'll be surprised. There'll be things in your gut that now what you're doing is validating it. And now, I know you come to a marketing conference and we started off with a surgery section. Now it's maths. Sorry, not sorry. Get your phones out if you're not the world's best mental arithmetic person, because now you're going to be multiplying those 2 out of 10 scores together to give a score out of 100. Okay? Brace, brace, brace. Any questions? Right, 15 seconds, bit of multiplication, off we go. Okay, now hopefully you've got at least a few things down and you've started the process. But now what you're doing is you're starting to get in the know, not the guess. You're starting to do some think, okay? This is the stuff that is really important. So let's look at a more built out version for something that hopefully we can all relate to, an on high street coffee shop. So you can see here our 2 top ranked, we've ranked them by our out of 100 score, home location and life stage, in this instance being really important. And we can debate at lunch whether they're the right ones, but this is just for an exercise, okay? So what are we going to do with that information? Well, if a customer is less than 10 miles away from our high street coffee shop, then we're going to have a different way of talking to them, because it might be that they're regularly passing on the way to something, or they're coming into the town to do something. And so our messages that are going out will be things like, on the way to, and this is how it starts tying in with the other things that we've just ascertained and prioritised. If they're further away, then let's say we're really known for our cream teas. Well, hey, thanks for visiting us and blah, blah, blah. You really loved the cream tea that you had with us. We can send you one in the post. Yeah, so you can do things around key moments, if you've recorded things like their birthdays, that kind of thing. But quite a different conversation depending on how far away from the shop they are. What about life stage? You might have students that come into your coffee shop. They might be coming in for a nice, cheap, hot meal, somewhere to charge their tech, somewhere to sit down and catch up with friends. And they might be coming in at a different time of day to young families. My kids are now 8 and 12, so I am way past the nappy stage. But, getting out and having a bit of sanity with other parents, taking our little cherubs with us and having a catch up and discussing nappies was actually a real highlight. And going out and having a nice cup of tea and a slice of cake, maybe a sandwich, something like that. So I might be getting in touch with them and saying, and we've got these spaces for where you can park your buggies, and we've got this brilliant baby changing space, because it's a given in that instance that our tea and coffee and our cakes and our food, whatever, are really good. But we want to know the other stuff to just lower down that anxiety. And if our customer is retired, perhaps they're coming after a game of mahjong or on the way to somewhere, or middle of the afternoon catch-ups with friends. And this is why we have to have done the thinking so we know how to get our messaging right. Can you see how if we had put out some messages that was trying to connect with all of those people, which is what you're doing when you're doing your things, when you're just posting, it's not going to connect with anyone. It's going to go whoosh, whoosh, it's flying off. Don't care, it's not connected with me. But when you start putting out some very targeted messaging for your different groups, your different types, you will make a connection. And if you have things on this list that are really important, they're high on the hero score, but you can't find it out, then that's the stuff that you talk about in your content, because we've identified that it's really important to that audience group. Does that make sense? Great, a lot of nodding heads, some disciples. So now very simply, we've done that data, we've used that list, they're going to be the things that go on the axis of our think matrix. So now we're in a position to choose. So we come back to this data for, let's say, for our pet shops, and we've clustered them up. And we're able to look at this from a very dispassionate, I know we were talking about emotions earlier, but we're looking at this very data-led. We're able to say, and there's a whole load of databases, just connect with me and ask me questions, but there's ways in which you can find this data out, often for free. Even Emma might talk to us a bit later about AI. We might be able to find it out via our favourite AI engine. But we've been able to ascertain how many households are doing this. How many households are in this space? And then when we hopefully know our things like lifetime value, don't we, everyone? We know the value of our customers? Yes, yes, yes. Then we're able to multiply it by the household value. And then we're giving some real sensible figures. Just like Neil was saying, we need to know this data in our business. And now we've done this, we can make sensible choices. We've chosen these because this group, profitable, easily targetable, and trackable. But we've also chosen the other group because it really aligns well with our brand. And only then do you get into things like customer profiles. Now, it's not saying you're never going to sell pet food to any of these other customers. But what it is saying is we've got only so many hours in the day and only so many pounds in our bank account. So we've got to make some sensible choices about where we're going to spend our effort and money. So we're focusing on these two. It's also telling us where we will run away, or me hobble away from those customer groups that are a total bag of spanners. That's one of my favourite phrases. You often see me saying that on social. But you know those customers that you're slightly feeling a little bit sick if you get a phone call and you're like, oh my God, you now got the data. And you can share with the team it's okay for us not to work with them. And now we can engage because we've done the think. And when it comes to things like what theming are we using in our SEO, what themes are we putting out in our social posts, what are we putting in our email subject lines that is going to engage that group? No point writing a brilliant email content if your subject line's rubbish, no one's opening it. But that's why this stuff helps us to do better things when we've done the think. So group, choose, engage, absolutely critical. Now, those of you that have seen me speak before, I regularly share this case study because you know what? It's now 9 months old and it's still going. This client did the think before the things. Before working with us to do this, they were spending $2,500 on social media ads, getting 30 leads and 1 to 2 sales. It was quite a high ticket sale. By getting focused like this, we took their spend down by 80%. That paid for my fees. And then they're getting 90 leads a month consistently, and their BD guys they are so much better. And their sales went up to 9 to 10 sales a month. So they're absolutely cracking. And that's why step 1 is really, really important. So I want you to think before you do the things. It's really important that you do this. This transforms your marketing. And can you see why my bold statement at the beginning about a lot of marketing is bollocks? Because it's tactical marketing. It's doing the stuff which you need to do, but I'd encourage you to do the think before you get into the things. And your marketers will want you to have done the thinking, but they may not necessarily know how to, because we only know once we know, right? So if you want to get another copy of this, there's on the slides, there's QR codes that you can scan so you can get another copy. You can share it with your colleagues. And just like Charlie, would you like to find out how you're doing? What's your score for your thinking? My questions are a bit quicker. There's just 6 of them, take about 30 seconds. Yes, it then gives me your email address, but it means I can perhaps follow up with some targeted, useful information. So that's me done. Thank you. Are there any questions? Oh. Yep.
It probably is one for a coffee, but the difference between that exercise that kind of helps align who you should be targeting within your audience, and also then the work that you want to attract might be something different. I just didn't know if you had any advice on that. Does that
So
make sense?
yes and yes, I guess. So you're asking if there's particular work that you're wanting to attract, how do you align that with your audience?
Yeah.
So if you might think about, like, if you're already doing work, you might just want to think about what's the work that you enjoyed most, right? Because there'll be instantly, if I asked you that question, you'd be able to give me an answer. If I really pressed you, you'd be able to answer that. And then think about those customers, and that will help you start this journey. But what a lot of people say, yeah, Mo, we've done segmentation, because that's, remember, the marketing bollocksy word, but they do that based on a CRM. So that's based on the people you're already working with, who may not be in those sweet spots. And you want to make sure that you're making profitable choices for your marketing. That's going to bring you the work that you want, deserve, and frankly, that your accountant and you and your holiday fund wants, right? So it's kind of marrying the two, but happy to have a further explanation of that. Good question, Toby.